"I don't want to be his friend anymore" is never not met with shocked faces and pitchforks. But I wonder, do we really need our friends? And secondly, why exactly do we need them? See, friendships often get painted in these black and white terms. They are either important or not. They are either healthy or unhealthy. And we have a habit of shoving everything into a box, spray painting it with the word friend and moving on. But friendships are so nuanced, and there is a marked difference between a friend and a friend. There has to be a stark difference between wanting friends, wanting relationships, and needing them. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that being happy in your own company can end up being a literal life-saving trait. While we all agree on the importance of friendships, not all friendships are made the same. Some friendships are like warm, soft grass under your foot. They are comforting, nourishing, and make you smile. But others are dry, barb-like, jagged, and make you bleed. The point of this essay is to provide a balance to the universally known but never acknowledged fact that while friendships in general are a pretty great thing, some friendships never hit the mark. But this is far from a topic that is easy to wrap the mind around. So what we need to do is to break it all down. Who are your friends? No, really. At what point does a person become more than just a stranger? What is the threshold? Does the guy you once met on a plane and spent 6 hours chatting with and never saw again count as a friend? Can a childhood best friend with whom you have only interacted with on Instagram for years still be considered a friend? What are the conditions here? Because friends is a maddeningly broad term. Friends is an overarching, overlapping, and cumbersome Venn diagram that can include everything and everyone. Your childhood bestie is a friend. That one crackhead at the gas station you sometimes chat with is a friend. We have the friend, the best friend, the casual friend, the close friend, the occasional friend, the we occasionally date friend, the fair weather friend, the I need a favor friend, the work friend, the work best friend, the BFF, the childhood BFF you have not heard from for decades. You get my point. If we were to frame our entire social circles as a photograph, something needs to be the main subject. What we don't need to do is to cull the herd, but what we need to do is to really think and decide what's important. But that's when we run headfirst into the next problem. How are we to do that? If we were to give every friendship an Elder Scroll-esque stat chart, what would that look like? I think it would be a bit like this. Trust. So can you confide in them without fear of judgment or betrayal? Support. Are they genuinely there for you during tough times? Enjoyment. Do you actually like spending time with this person? Communication. Can you have meaningful conversations with them? Reciprocity. Is the friendship balanced in contributions? Longevity. Does the length of the friendship add value? Growth. Do they help you grow and support you? But these are just the baseline, and more than that, these parameters are the furthest thing from exclusive. Just about every single one of them is quite significantly impacted by another. Because trust impacts support, support impacts trust, enjoyment impacts communication, and so on. If I were to pick 3 main stats, those that have the most impact, it would probably be reciprocity, support, and enjoyment. Aristotle said friendship is a single soul dwelling in 2 bodies. But as we have already covered, not all friendships are equal. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort to sustain any relationship. And I think it's logical to assume that not all friendships deserve such an investment. Most friendships fall in this weird little boat where they are both disposable and not, both important and dispensable. The prevalent discourse around friendships fading away due to neglect has instilled in us a tendency to cling onto every relationship. However, some friendships are just too draining, too noxious, too encumbering, and too fruitless to continue. There is a definite element of looking after someone else when fostering a friendship. But there should also be an element of selfishness, an element of looking after yourself. Should there be not? Because when a 6-year-old makes friends in preschool, it would seem that the last thing on her mind would be her own motives. She is, after all, just a 6-year-old. And yet, there are no 6-year-old who would be friends with someone they simply do not like. In fact, it can be argued that kids are simply better at making and keeping friends than most adults ever can. Adult friendships, for a lot of good and terrible reasons, are exponentially more complex. But even in all of this, feeling good should seem like a very important checkbox to check mark. So why do we do this? Why do we go sideways to become friends with people we truly do not give a crap about? Why do we care so much about friendships that ultimately have nothing to offer and only add weight to our lives? Every friendship, every relationship has a weight behind it, a weight of responsibility, you can say, a weight of trust and communication and reciprocity. So it really sucks when it seems like you are the only person who gives a crap about your own friendship, when you are always the one calling first, texting first, making plans first. In those friendships that actually matter, that actually have some meaning, this disparity in quite simply giving a shit can feel glaring and painful. It's like carrying the weight of the friendship on your own shoulders while the other person's contribution feels light and fleeting. This asymmetry in effort not only destroys any and all foundation the friendship stands on, but it also actively hurts us. It makes us feel unimportant and irrelevant. And the harsh truth that everyone knows and everyone ignores is this: one-way friendships are quite simply unsustainable. When one half of a friendship does not give a shit about said friendship, that friendship is already a dead thing. All that's left to do is to bury it. One-sided friendships have two possible fates. They either crumble into a sad, empty shell of what could have been, or they stick around just long enough for something dramatic to set them ablaze. It is so easy to hang on to these lopsided relationships, but sometimes you just have to close your eyes and call it quits before the whole thing goes up in smoke. If your friends don't occasionally share slightly embarrassing sob stories, are they even really friends? I think trust might be oversimplifying this, because it is the most obvious thing in the world to ditch a friendship when the trust is broken. But what I'm thinking is more along the lines of friendships that already never had any trust worth breaking. Now, not every friendship needs to have everyone emptying their souls on a daily basis. But I do think that there needs to be some degree of vulnerability. A person at work with whom you can be candid and open with is a friend. In contrast, someone you have daily lunches with but only discuss work and the weather is just another colleague. This trust, this vulnerability and deep knowledge that whatever you say will be listened to and cared about is why many friendships can still work and flourish, even when they lack the other qualities like longevity and growth. That's why your best friend from university, the one you really connected with, can still be a good friend even after not seeing each other for years. Trust is foundational. Betrayal in that regard is a very clear indicator of something that has fractured. But comfort and vulnerability are two stats that are almost as important but half as obvious. What even is the point of a friendship? Sure, trust, vulnerability, support, and all of that other stuff are indicators of a good friendship, but none of that really matters if you can't have simple, enjoyable fun with the other person. There are so many of those every friend group needs one memes, and I think we naturally create a circle where everyone is just a little bit different, because there are so many ways to enjoy a friendship. We have the simplest let's party types that are all about events, get-togethers, and taking group selfies. Then there is the friend who is always ready with an ear to rant into when things get rough. They never judge and seem to have the patience of a saint. Then we have the friend who gives unsolicited, sometimes hard to hear advice that is often ignored but later regretted. You get the point. So while there are so many ways to enjoy a friendship, but it's important to remember that this dynamic is not for everyone. Not everyone is up for partying every weekend, and neither is everyone comfortable with deep emotional conversations. In the end, the size of your circle does not really matter all that much. The point of every friendship should be about finding people who make your life better. It's about shared experiences and just enjoying being around good company. So much is excused in a long friendship because of the shared history and the emotional investment. Over time, friends build up sort of an emotional bank account where all the good memories and supportive moments act as deposits that can cover the occasional withdrawal of a mistake or a misunderstanding. There is also the familiarity and comfort that comes with knowing someone for a long time. You understand each other's flaws and faults and often choose to overlook them because you have seen the best and worst of each other. This idea of they've always been there creates a strong loyalty that makes us more forgiving. Essentially, the longevity of a friendship gives it a resilience that shorter bonds often lack. And yet, so many lifelong friendships die a strange, weird death. Sometimes, the only thing keeping the friendship alive is the inertia of not wanting to go through the hassle of making new friends who already know why you can't stand pineapple on pizza. Friendships seem to be dying. It's actually pretty sad. Most friendship stats are based on the US, so that's what I'm going with here. While this does not reflect the whole world, it's still pretty telling. Studies show a worrying trend that people are making fewer and fewer friends. Today, most Americans have far fewer close friends than they did 30 years ago, according to the Survey Center on American Life. Back in 1990, when asked how many friends they had, most people said 10 or more. Now, many hesitate to say they have friends in the double digits. This is pretty scary, but also comforting in the strangest of ways. 3 decades ago, only 3% of Americans told Gallup that they had no close friends. By 2021, that number had jumped to 12%, and after about a year of the pandemic, 13% of women and 8% of men aged 30 to 49 reported losing touch with most of their friends. An often cited 2010 meta-analysis led by Julian Holt Lunstad, a professor of psychology and neuroscience at Brigham Young University, concluded that loneliness is as harmful to physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So, how many friends do you need? The answer might just surprise you. It's 150. The most popular answer to the question of how many friends do we need to remain healthy is 150. And I don't know about you, but I do not have 150 friends. I don't even have 15. It is troubling. Not having friends is trouble, but knowing how much of a trouble not having friends is also its own sort of trouble. And here I am asking you to cut off your friends. In a world where friendships are a dying thing, letting go of your own friends seems monstrous. But still, I cannot help but wonder if it's worth being alone over being with a friend you are not really friends with. This essay, as a whole, paints a very unflattering light on the truly beautiful thing that are friendships. I make friendships sound less like a soulful connection between two people, but more like something to be put under a microscope, something to be studied and perfected. It is unfair and unreasonable to place such immense pressure on any friendship. Friendships should be natural and organic, free from the burdens of expectations and rigid standards. There should never be a specific checklist that every friendship has to pass to be considered valid, successful, or healthy. But what we often forget and don't consider is just how damn complicated friendships are. From social dynamics to psychology, it feels terribly difficult to keep a good circle of friends. The most majority of the friendships we make in our lives simply get lost. We grow up, we change, we move on. But letting go of a friendship is very different, because letting go is a conscious decision. There is so much noise, so much clutter and jargon around us, and in this, we simply acquire things. We collect people, brand them as friends, and rarely stop to consider how troubling it can be to hand over and open yourself up to someone just waiting to poke a pencil inside.